Although it may seem like all there is to adding content to a web page is typing it in, there's a little more that goes into it than meets the eye. You see, HTML contains predefined tags that help us to identify elements on a web page as what they are. For example, if you open up a book or a magazine, you'll notice there are various different type treatments that have been applied to the page. Some examples might be a heading, a subheading, and even a paragraph. The web is no different. On the web, using predefined tags, we can identify elements on the page to help search engines find our site. To make it easy for all users to view our web pages, and to make formatting the content later on much easier. Let me show you what I mean. I'm beginning this video with Dreamweaver already open on my computer, and in my Files panel, I'm going to open up the pagestructure.html file. Now, when I open this file, it's going to open up in code view, at least on my computer. And if yours opened in design view, just switch over to code view for a second so I can show you that in the main area of our web page, you can see that just about everything is what we refer to as tagged with a P tag. So every one of these items you can see here has a P surrounded with it. And these little elements here are what are referred to as tags. And every tag opens and closes. The difference being that a closing tag has a / in front of the P. Now these tags help to identify the text as what it is. Now what we're going to do is we're going to apply a little bit more relevance to this content by adding different tags to these elements. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to Design View. And you can see that Design View shows us very basic text. It's showing us how the text is going to appear. So to apply a different tag to some text, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to highlight some text here. And in your Properties panel, way down here at the bottom of your screen, you have a Format drop-down menu. And when you click on that, Dreamweaver is going to show you all of the predefined tags that you can use inside of the program and in the HTML language. Now, I will tell you there are more tags than you see here, but for basic text formatting, these are the ones you're going to use most often. So for the highlighted text, I'm going to go ahead and choose Heading 1. And the first thing you're going to notice is that the formatting has in fact changed. And the Heading 1 is now applied to the selected text. So you can see how this works. And what we're going to do is we're just going to go through and we're going to change some of the other formatting here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to jump down to the word flavors here. I'm going to go ahead and highlight that. And in the format drop-down menu, we're going to change that to an H2. Now you may notice when we're formatting this text, or I should say when we're tagging this text, that the heading 2 is a little bit smaller than the heading 1. And whenever I'm teaching HTML, I try to encourage people not to think of a heading 1 as being bigger than a heading 2, because that can be changed later on. But do in fact think of a heading 1 as being more important than a heading 2. So as we're tagging this text, you can see we're applying relevance to the content. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to jump down to Discover Our Food, and I'm going to apply a heading 6 tag to that text. As you can see, this one got quite smaller, but again, we can change that later on. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight vegetarian. That's going to be an H2. And Discover Our Food is going to be an H6 or a heading 6. And then we'll go to takeout. That's going to be a heading 2. And Discover Our Food is going to be a heading 6. Now, if we switch back to code view, I'd like to show you how the elements have been applied. So these tags here, you'll notice they are also referred to, or you may hear people refer to them as elements as well. They're really one and the same. So we've basically tagged the content. And so the text that appears within the opening and closing tags is the content of the tag itself, or of the element. So you can see that different tags have now been applied to our text because we chose them using the Format drop-down menu. Now, the other thing we can do here is we can add what are referred to as attributes to our text. And we'll be doing that a little bit more later on, but what I would like to do is I'd like to apply an attribute to this first heading 1 tag. Now, just to point something out, we've already added some attributes to this document. If you look up here in the meta tags, we have a tag called meta, The first attribute is name, and the value is keywords. Okay, so you can see how this works. Then we have another attribute for content, and the values are steak, fish, seafood, restaurant, and food. And the values of the attribute always are contained within quotes. And you may be wondering why this is important to know. It's important to know if you ever get a file from someone else, or even if you've modified your own file, and things aren't quite working properly, it's helpful to know the proper syntax of attributes and tags and so on and so forth. So what I'm going to do here for my heading 1 tag, what we're going to do is we're going to apply a title attribute to this text. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and click right after the H1, and I'm going to put a space, and I'm going to type title. Now, Dreamweaver is pretty smart, and you can see that it has automatically filtered out all of the attributes to list the one that it thinks I'm trying to type. And title is, of course, the one that I want to use. So I'm going to press return, and it's going to insert the attribute and automatically enter the equals with quotes to enter the attribute value. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to type a little bit about Jummy. I'm going to type here, Jummy the restaurant. And you can see how I've now added an attribute to the heading to give it a little bit more descriptive information. Now again, we switch back to the design view, and we can see here that the formatting has in fact changed. But do understand that the formatting is controlled in a different way. We're going to utilize CSS to format the way that appears, but we'll do that a little bit later on. So as you can see, these predefined tags help us to identify the various areas of our web page, and will make our web pages structured in a much more logical and clean way.